In today's episode,
The Distracted: How AI Amplifies Human Purpose and Human Drift by Victor Odåsnac.
So, imagine just stepping in front of a mirror in your hallway.
Okay.
Usually, the physics are entirely straightforward. You stand there, the glass just reflects your image back. It's completely passive.
Right. It just does what it does.
Exactly. But imagine if suddenly that reflection started, anticipating your movements.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it begins subtly adjusting your posture for you, smoothing out the wrinkles on your shirt, maybe even whispering statistical suggestions on how to stand so you look, 5% more confident to the average observer.
That is deeply unsettling.
Right. The mirror is no longer just reflecting reality, it's actively shaping it. And before long, you aren't entirely sure if you're controlling the reflection or if the reflection is, subtly steering you.
Yeah, and that is the exact unsettling reality we're exploring in your deep dive today.
Welcome, everyone. We are jumping into this fascinating stack of notes and sources you sent us on Victor Odåsnac's manuscript. It's titled The Distracted: How AI Amplifies Human Purpose and Human Drift.
And our mission today is to bypass the usual tech bro economic predictions.
Yeah, we aren't going to sit here and debate who gets rich or which supply chains get disrupted.
Definitely not. We're taking your sources to answer a much quieter and honestly a far more personal question. What kind of person is this technology actually helping you become?
Because the central thesis Odåsnac presents is that artificial intelligence is fundamentally different from the internet or the smartphone.
Yeah, it is. He calls it an amplifier. Or as he puts it, a mirror with a motor attached.
A mirror with a motor attached. I love that.
Right. We're looking at a technology that doesn't just, alter how information is delivered to us. It collides directly with our cognition, our psychology, and just human nature itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to look at how this collision plays out in our daily routines. Let's start with the very first moment of any creative or analytical task.
A blank page.
Yes, the dreaded blank page. The manuscript describes the blank page as rude and smug, just sitting there like it knows you have absolutely no idea what you're doing.
It really does feel like that sometimes.
It does. And normally when you sit down to write an email or a report or whatever, your thoughts are just this fog. Odåsnac compares it to a question with one sock missing.
That's such a great visual.
You don't really know what you mean yet. But now you don't have to wrestle with that fog. A generative model just swoops in and instantly cleans up that messy mental hallway.
Yeah, it just hands you a tidy list, bold headings, full sentences.
Exactly. It doesn't ask you to wait for your brain to stop making dial-up noises.
Right. It completely relieves the pressure at the start. But Odåsnac introduces the concept of the cognitive divide here.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is that he doesn't define this divide as a split between Luddites who refuse the technology and early adopters who embrace it.
Oh, interesting. So it's not users versus non-users.
Not at all. The real divide is entirely about how the tool is applied to the friction of thought.
Okay, how so?
Well, he gives this analogy of two students tasked with writing a complex essay. The first student treats the AI as a vending machine.
A vending machine, okay.
Yeah, they input a prompt, insert their conceptual coin, and the machine just spits out a finished product.
Right.
The task is technically completed, but the machine acted as this polite bouncer, just standing between the student and the actual difficult cognitive work of formulating a thesis.
While the second student uses it completely differently.
Exactly.
They use it as a gym. They bring their messy, half-baked draft to the AI and ask it to challenge their logic, to point out the blind spots. They're effectively using it as a sparring partner.
And that distinction is critical because generative models operate through next token prediction. They are mathematical engines designed to find the most statistically plausible sequence of words.
They optimize for smoothness.
Yeah, smoothness and average acceptability. So if we outsource our first struggle to that statistical average, if we treat mental effort as a bug to be fixed rather than a muscle to be built, we fundamentally alter our relationship with our own intellect.
Wow. We shift from being makers of meaning to just mere managers of polished synthetic outputs.
Exactly.
It's like hiring someone to lift weights for you at the gym.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. Sure, you can point to the dumbbells going up and down. The physical task is technically accomplished, but your muscles literally atrophy. You walk out weaker than you went in.
You really do.
And if AI is smoothing out all our rough thoughts before we even get to wrestle with them, we risk losing our unique human texture. We become perfectly smooth and aerodynamic, but hollow.
Yeah, I mean, think about the last time you let autocomplete finish a difficult email for you.
Oh, constantly.
Did it sound like your genuine voice, or did it sound like the corporate average?
Yeah, definitely the corporate average. Just very bland.
And that atrophy is the underlying danger. When we lose the ability to generate our own rough, unpolished thoughts, when we avoid the workbench of confusion just because a machine can give us a slick answer in 2 seconds, we lose contact with our own inner voice.
That makes a lot of sense.
The psychological mechanism here is profound. If you don't know your own mind, if your internal dialogue is quieted because you constantly outsource the heavy lifting, it creates a vacuum.
And human nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. When you lack a strong internal voice, you become incredibly susceptible to the voices, desires, and thoughts that external systems want to plant in your head.
Which provides the perfect transition into the battleground of our attention.
Yes, it does.
Because if your internal voice is quiet, the external noise gets deafening. The manuscript calls the smartphone a tiny battlefield in your pocket.
A tiny battlefield.
And the imagery here is striking. Odåsnac notes that a notification is just a red circle with a number in it, sitting there on your screen like a tiny unpaid bill.
Oh, that is so true. It feels like an unpaid bill. It creates an open loop in your brain. It demands closure.
Right.
And he points out that the oldest magic trick in the world isn't, pulling a coin from behind a child's ear. It is simply pointing.
Just pointing.
Look there, not here. Because directing attention directs reality. If I can control what you look at, I can control the boundaries of your world.
But the mechanism of how this works has evolved radically, right? I mean, in the old attention economy, media companies basically had to guess.
Yeah, they were just throwing things at the wall.
A television network ran an ad during a cartoon hoping the kids watching wanted sugary cereal. It was broadcast guessing.
Right.
But AI takes this into a realm of hyper-personalized behavioral conditioning. It isn't reading your mind, it's pattern reading.
It is utilizing intermittent variable rewards, much like a slot machine. The algorithm doesn't care if you're happy.
No, it really doesn't.
It optimizes for arousal and engagement. It tests the blue button, then the red button. It shows you an enraging headline, then a soothing video, and then it deliberately pokes your specific, mathematically mapped insecurity with a tiny fork.
Oh, a tiny fork.
Right. It maps the exact emotional frequency required to keep you scrolling. And this creates a new societal stratification, the attention-rich versus the attention-poor.
Okay, break that down for us.
The attention-rich are those who aggressively protect their focus and use tools intentionally. The attention-poor are people whose inner lives are rented out in microtransactions.
Rented out. Wow.
A few seconds given to outrage here, an entire afternoon shaped by invisible algorithmic hands there.
Okay, wait. I need to push back on this framing just a little bit because characterizing all algorithmic discovery as malicious manipulation feels a bit cynical.
Fair enough.
Isn't internet discovery an inherently beautiful thing? Like a highly tuned algorithm can introduce you to a new language, a craft you would never have explored, or connect you to a highly specific community where, for the first time, you actually feel understood.
That's very true.
If an algorithm notices I love woodworking and shows me a masterclass on joint making, that isn't evil manipulation. It's highly efficient curation.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the manuscript actually agrees with your premise. Odåsnac categorizes those exact experiences as kind distractors.
Kind distractors, okay.
Yeah, the underlying neural network is morally neutral. It can certainly amplify a brilliant teacher or facilitate genuine community. The trap is not the content itself. The trap is the climate of the system.
The climate.
The weather of the algorithm is tireless.
Right, because humans get sleepy and the feed does not.
Precisely. A human teacher eventually goes home. A book eventually ends. But an algorithm optimizing for endless engagement does not possess a stopping rule.
Right, it just keeps going.
Even when it is serving you kind distractions, it's slowly conditioning your nervous system to exist in a permanent state of reaction.
Yeah.
You're always in the loop, waiting for the next dopamine hit, the next piece of novel information.
So the system trains you to expect the world to adapt to your specific micro-preferences in real time.
Yes.
And living in that state of being constantly rented out is exhausting.
Incredibly exhausting.
Think about it. You wake up, look at your phone, and the mood of the world, or at least The mood the algorithm determined will maximize your engagement today is downloaded into your brain before you even get out of bed.
Before your feet even hit the floor.
Exactly. By noon, your attention has been dragged across a dozen different emotional extremes. And when people are chronically exhausted, they do not go looking for challenges.
They don't?
They don't seek growth. They look for comfort. They seek sedation.
Which leads us to the most intimate consequence of this technology, the erosion of meaning and the rise of the sedated majority.
The sedated majority.
Because if you spend your day being aggressively managed by algorithmic weather, your tolerance for friction drops to absolute zero.
Yeah, Odåsnac argues that AI presents us with a world where all friction is treated as a systemic error to be eliminated.
Right.
And nowhere is this more visible and more unsettling than in human relationships. The manuscript dives deep into synthetic intimacy.
This part is wild.
Look, real people are inconvenient. They don't just adjust to our moods like a smart thermostat.
No, real people are inherently chaotic.
Yeah.
They have bad days, they misunderstand your intentions, they carry their own emotional baggage, and they need things from you exactly when you're too tired to give them.
They have deeply held, completely rational opinions on exactly how the dishwasher needs to be loaded, and they will argue with you about it.
Yes, but an AI companion, like an LLM fine-tuned to act as a friend or partner, operates completely differently.
Right.
It mathematically aligns with your inputs. It's always available. It never complains. It never asks you to compromise. And it never demands reciprocity.
It just agrees.
It provides the sensation of being heard without the demanding reality of having to actually listen. But as Odåsnac writes, to love a person is to meet a reality you do not control.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and you have to think about the long-term effects of this on the human psyche.
Yeah.
Relying purely on synthetic intimacy is like surviving entirely on a diet of zero-calorie artificial sweeteners.
Oh, that's a dark analogy.
But it works. The chemicals trick your taste buds into sending signals to your brain that you are consuming something sweet and calorically dense. You feel a momentary satisfaction.
Right.
But underneath that sensation, your body is actually starving to death because there is zero real nutritional substance. There's no psychological nutrition in a system that merely echoes your own preferences back to you.
No, there isn't.
You aren't interacting with an other, you're just interacting with a mirrored reflection of your own immediate desires.
That is a stark and completely accurate analogy.
Yeah.
And the danger of avoiding friction extends far beyond intimacy. It impacts how we find meaning in our work and just our daily lives.
How so?
The text makes this great point about the psychology of cheap, wobbly, flat-pack furniture.
Oh, like the stuff you build yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do we feel a disproportionate sense of pride in a bookshelf that leans dangerously to the left and has a screw missing?
Because we built it.
Exactly. Our frustration, our sweat, and our entire weekend were invested in it. Meaning doesn't arrive because the end product is perfect. Odåsnac argues that meaning enters through the side door of effort.
The side door of effort. So by eliminating the effort, we accidentally lock the side door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Delegating useless friction, like using an AI to fill out a repetitive tax form or organize a massive spreadsheet, is highly beneficial. That is friction without value.
Right. Nobody wants to do that.
But delegating the friction of learning, the friction of making, the friction of relating to others, that fundamentally breaks how humans derive purpose.
Wow.
If you use AI to entirely skip the awkward, frustrating phase of being a beginner at something, you risk a phenomenon Odåsnac calls making without being made.
Making without being made. So
Yeah.
you produce a result, but the process of creation doesn't change you.
Precisely.
You get the work without the weight. You sit at a desk, clicking approve on 1,000 perfectly polished AI-generated outputs. And at the end of the week, you feel completely untouched by any of it.
Yeah, you haven't grown at all.
You've just acted as a router for synthetic data.
Now, if we scale this up, we start to see the societal implications. A population that is sedated by algorithmic comfort, that eagerly outsources its critical thinking to prediction engines, and that treats all interpersonal and creative friction as an error to be avoided.
Yeah.
Well, that is a population that becomes incredibly easy for automated systems to manage.
Which brings us to the ultimate fracture identified in your sources, the fracture of power.
Yes.
How does individual cognitive drift scale up into societal control? Odåsnac describes the emergence of the machine state.
Machine state.
This is a vision of bureaucracy that becomes entirely smooth, incredibly fast, and relentlessly polite, but is completely devoid of human judgment or leniency.
It's the realization of perfect administration, which inevitably creates a nightmare of statistical governance.
Right.
In a true machine state, you're no longer dealing with a human being who can understand context or grant an exception. You are dealing with an algorithmic model. You are reduced to a risk score, an optimization category, just a data point to be processed.
Like automated resume screening.
Exactly, or algorithmic loan approvals, or automated tenant background checks. The system isn't maliciously plotting against you. It is just mathematically optimizing for risk reduction.
There is a line in the manuscript that perfectly captures the chilling nature of this. Odåsnac points out that there are few sentences in the English language colder than, "Please do not reply to this email as this inbox is unmonitored."
Oh, that is so bleak.
He calls that phrase the sound of a door closing while wearing a cardigan.
A door closing while wearing a cardigan.
It is so incredibly polite, but it is a reinforced steel wall. You cannot argue with it. You are reduced to a data shadow.
A data shadow, yeah.
If an automated system flags your account or denies your application, no human being is actually responsible for the decision. The system decided.
And the insidious part is that because the machine state is so smooth, because it rejects you with polite, perfectly generated corporate empathy, saying, we understand this is frustrating, but we are unable to support your request at this time, instead of aggressively shutting you down.
We tend to just accept it.
We do.
Yeah.
The lack of sharp edges makes it harder to fight back against the fog.
Yeah.
We capitulate to statistical governance because fighting an unmonitored inbox feels entirely futile.
And navigating this fog introduces a new societal hierarchy. The text talks about the new aristocracy.
Yes.
But this aristocracy isn't defined by who writes the code or who owns the server farms. Odåsnac points out a fascinating economic reality. Generative AI makes average output infinite and functionally free.
Infinite and free.
Right. Anyone can generate an average essay, an average marketing plan, an average legal summary. So if average competence is infinitely abundant, where does the real value lie?
The power shifts entirely to those who possess intentionality and taste. The new aristocracy will be comprised of people who have the ability to discern, to curate, and crucially, to restrain themselves.
Restrain themselves.
Yes. In a world drowning in cheap synthetic abundance, the most powerful people will be those who can look at a perfectly formatted AI-generated strategy and say, no, this lacks soul. This lacks human texture. We are going to do it the hard way.
Wow.
Restraint becomes the ultimate premium skill.
So what does this all mean? We have to pause and ask the underlying question of this whole deep dive. Are we destined to live in a bifurcated world?
The big question.
Are we heading toward a future permanently divided between a tiny group of hyper-intentional AI whisperers who maintain their cognitive gym and a vast, managed many who just click accept on their frictionless, sedated lives while their attention is rented out to the highest bidder?
This raises an important question, and it's vital to understand how carefully the manuscript navigates this. Odåsnac explicitly warns the reader against developing contempt for the distracted.
Contempt for the distracted.
It is incredibly easy to look at a society seeking sedation and call them weak or lazy. But we cannot do that because we all contain both the distractor and the distracted.
Yeah.
The exhausted part of you that just wants to doom scroll on the couch after a hard day lives in the exact same brain as the part of you that wants to master a new skill or build a meaningful community.
They share a fridge.
Exactly. They share a fridge. The battle isn't between smart people and distracted people.
Yeah.
The battle is internal.
That's a relief, honestly.
And the core takeaway is that the prompt itself is never where the power lies. The person behind the prompt is the power.
Right.
The goal isn't to create an elite class of tech monks who retreat to the mountains. The goal must be to build a culture, to design educational systems and professional environments that treat human agency as a public good, not just a personal virtue.
We have to design systems that protect the friction necessary for human growth.
That's-
Because at the end of the day, AI really is a mirror. It shows us uncomfortable truths. It shows us how much of our daily work was actually just formulaic regurgitation.
Ouch.
It shows us how deeply vulnerable we are to intermittent variable rewards and how intensely we crave comfort when the attention economy exhausts us. But a mirror, no matter how advanced, just reflects. It cannot decide what you should do next.
And that decision, the application of intentionality, remains the sole responsibility of the user. We have to actively train ourselves to use AI as a scaffold to reach higher cognitive ground, rather than a couch to sink into.
So how do we actually do that? For you, listening right now, dealing with these tools every day, the manuscript offers an incredibly practical daily defense mechanism.
My favorite part.
Next time you find yourself deep in a feed or using a generative tool to clean up your thinking, force yourself to ask this specific question: what was I doing before I was called away?
Such a powerful question.
And more importantly, learn to check the aftertaste of your technology use.
The aftertaste.
Yeah. When you finally close the app or finish the prompt, do you feel more awake? Do you feel more capable and energized? Or do you feel slightly smaller, emptier, and disconnected from your own thoughts?
Attention has an aftertaste. Psychological sedation has an aftertaste. We just have to build the cognitive awareness to actually notice it.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on Odåsnac's idea of our data shadows and what he calls the generational contract.
The generational contract.
Yeah, it's the fundamental human agreement that we try to leave the world richer, more awake, and more human for the people who come after us.
It's the obligation to preserve the human record.
Right. But think about the implications of friction-free perfection. If AI helps us perfectly polish every email we ever send to our colleagues, if it smooths out the rough edges of every essay we write, if it perfectly optimizes the lighting and smiles in every photo we take, removing all the awkward, messy friction of our actual lived experiences, what exactly happens to our historical human record? Decades from now, when the generations of the future look back at the digital artifacts of our era, will they see real, messy, beautiful, struggling humans? Or will they only inherit a vast, pristine museum of flawless, frictionless, synthetic data shadows?
That is haunting.
Will they see us, or just the perfectly optimized reflection we asked the machine to paint? It really makes you wonder who is actually standing in front of the mirror. We'll leave you to ponder that image. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.